How you guys doing today? It's Anthony Ganji. Welcome to another episode of Tier Talk. Great topic today. We're going to talk about when the rookie becomes the anchor. Kind of complements the series we've done with rookies and senior staff, kind of blending into the culture. What we're going to share today, some of them could be some common sense tips, but there are some that are least known. And basically what we're trying to say is that rookies, they do have the right to take the initiative, and there are moments when they will have to. There are moments that will challenge them, and they will need to step up. And I believe we came with 11 moments, not all inclusive, but 11 moments in which the rookie may not have a choice but to step up and be that anchor. And this topic is really about recognizing that moment. Now, guys, don't forget I have plenty of books on the market, a couple of new books out on Blue 360 Media, a couple of books that are out there on Amazon as well. I got the links to all those books in my description. But if you guys are interested, I would definitely recommend right now these most recent ebooks. Surviving Without a Mentor. So 100 D-Cup tips for rookie correctional staff. Rank Before Ready, 100 subtle survival tips for correctional leaders. Warden's Wisdom, 100 subtle lessons in prison leadership. That's a big book. And then you have Corrections Interrupted. You know, how to rebuild after a critical incident. And each book runs for about $9.99 each. And don't forget, we still have Inmate Manipulation Decoded out there as well. So all the links for all those books are in the description, including one more book, the rookie book that's out of Blue 360 Media, Daily Guide for Rookie Staff. You should get your hands on that as well. It's kind of just a good collection of books. Hey, Joe, what's up, brother?
What's happening, brother? How are you?
Good. This is unexpected, a Friday day.
A Friday during a day, man. What's really going on?
Nah, this is good. Well, you know, this is a good thing, you know, even though I probably won't release it till after hours anyway. Hey, Joe, do you mind introducing yourself, please?
Yes, sir. My name is Joe Pomponio. I'm a retired lieutenant from the Texas Department of Corrections, 29 years, 6 months. I'm currently working as a assistant jail administrator in our local sheriff's department in the jail division and a panel member here for Tier Talk.
Yes. Now, Joe, you do think that this is a good topic, right? Because there are going to be moments where the rookie may have to step up and take the lead. And I'm sure you've witnessed that in your career, correct?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's going to be crisis moments. There's going to be moments of contention, and, you know, and the rookie really has no choice but to step up. And, you know, that's when they start gaining their confidence and experience.
Yes, I totally agree. And guys, again, it kind of balances well with the topics that we already put out there. So I got 11 areas that I would like to discuss. So basically, when the rookie becomes the anchor, recognizing and rising to the moment. So in corrections, new officers are told to listen, observe, and follow, but the story doesn't always end there, because sometimes leadership doesn't wait for experience. It waits for awareness, for presence, for the one person who sees what needs to be done and does it regardless of rank. That person might be the rookie. But let's be clear, this isn't about disrespecting experience. It's about honoring the mission. And that means every team member, no matter how new or how seasoned, must be ready to lead when the moment calls for it. For the rookie, that means recognizing when it's your time. And for the veteran, that means knowing when to accept the assist. That's key. For the veteran, knowing when to accept the assist. The badge doesn't come with a hierarchy of value. It comes with shared responsibility. What's your thoughts on that, Joe, about senior officers or senior staff accepting the assist?
You know, and in moments of crisis, when you're having some sort of operational issue that requires a team effort, you know, it's no longer about the rookie and the seasoned vet. It's about the team at that point. And, you know, if the training is done correctly, if we are seeing things through with the rookies, you know, when they're going through OJT, and we follow up and do what we're supposed to do, you know, during moments of crisis and in moments of, you know, critical incidents, you would be surprised how quickly it turns from seasoned vet and rookie to just a team effort. At that point, it's not about the rookie or the seasoned vet. I've seen rookies step up right up off the bat, you know, because, you know, a lot of them like to, you know, when I used to teach them, a lot of them, you know, I used to teach them the what if game. So a lot of these guys would play that what if game, and you know, some of them answered the call.
Yeah. And guys, there's no order here. It's just random tips, but this is really a way to introduce a great working partner, a great working relationship, because again, new boots, they may be seeing things that you may have forgotten, or, they just got a different perspective. And I think this allows for us to kind of accept each other, including what our status is with each other. So, I may be new, you may be senior. How do we work together? How do we both develop into something that's better than what we were yesterday? And I think that would be great. I think it would be great if senior officers could see rookies as a way to cultivate themselves as well. Kind of get the insight on what's new, what's being taught, because most likely what's being taught at the rookies, this is the sad thing, it's probably not being taught to the senior officers. Always that disconnect. So the first thing I got here, Joe, is, again, a moment you should recognize as a rookie is when a senior officer is emotionally compromised. Now, guys, this doesn't take years of experience to recognize. I mean, this is literally a moment of emotional weakness, which I believe we all should be able to recognize or be familiar with. So even the strongest veterans can be shaken by trauma. In the aftermath of a suicide, a staff injury, or a critical incident, emotions can overwhelm even the most experienced of hands. So signs that it's time for you to step up is maybe the senior staff member becomes unusually quiet, disoriented, or disconnected. Delays in response, maybe loss of focus, or avoiding the scene altogether. And then there's emotional leakage, like agitation, withdrawal, or maybe just plain out going on autopilot. So the anchor in actions may be to maintain your composure as a rookie. Your calmness could be contagious. Take initiative without fanfare. I got the radio calls, you catch your breath. Show the senior officer you have their back, that it's not a way of, it's not expressing a weakness on their end, but rather they're a need for you to support them. So now you have that definition of being my brother and sister's keeper. And ensure critical tasks are handled, then discreetly alert supervisors if support is needed. Now, to the senior officer, there's no weakness in needing a moment. Let the rookie carry the weight briefly. They're not replacing you. They're honoring what you taught them. What's your thoughts on that, Joe? You're muted, Joe.
Well, I've seen, in previous, rookies and classes and cadets, you get some that come from diverse backgrounds. And I remember one incident in short, where an inmate was harming himself and cutting himself with a razor. And the sergeant went down there to go deal with it. They were going to, use chemical agents because he was refusing to give up the razor. So, the whole team responded, and there was 2 rookies on that team, and one of them happened to be an old combat medic from the Army. And when they popped the door, this guy had legitimately cut himself in several places. I mean, there was blood clots and stuff down on the floor, and it kind of shocked that sergeant because it was a scene that the sergeant really hadn't experienced yet as a supervisor. And, the one rookie who was still on OJT at that time, I heard it on the video itself, where he said, "Hey, Sarge, let's just run this by the numbers. Where's the gauze?" He just kind of took charge at that point. Got him stabilized, got him to the point where they can get him bandaged up, and got him restrained. And then, the team was able to take over from there. But, there's times where, even the best of vets get emotionally compromised, whether it be anger, whether it be sadness, whether it be, just critical shock from what they see. And, you're going to find that there are times that there's somebody in that group, in that bunch that's got the calmness that will, eventually perpetuate itself over the team. Because if one person stays calm and just kind of takes the lead, everybody else tends to stay calm. If one person freaks out, everybody freaks out.
Yeah, and it's great because I do the number 8. The 8th tip is when your life experience gives you an edge. Yeah. You kind of mentioned that with the medic. What's funny? Kind of move through this, but I just want to mention a thought. So I've been involved in a few incidences, obviously, through my course of 22 years, and I've been able to kind of see how some people react to it and how some people don't react to it. And I know it may sound unique, but there is a richness in when you do have an experience, and during that experience, you see how people maneuver to have each other's back in the emotional, not just the tactical, not just a way to control the scene, but you could see like certain people being pulled aside to chat with them and try to work them through the emotions that they're going through. And it's funny because you don't really have the time during the incident to appreciate the magic that's happening in that moment, because there is higher concerns, obviously, that you're dealing with. But if you're able to remember that moment, usually the person being pulled aside may remember it. And then what they do is they go back to the individual who helped them and say, hey, I had a moment, you were there for me. And you know what's funny? Rank didn't matter, or neither did how many years you had in. I mean, sometimes there's just that human connection. So you have a moment where, and a scenario I'm thinking of was an inmate that did try to kill themselves. The inmate wasn't successful, but the officer was shaken by it. And the person that was able to help the officer emotionally was actually the rookie, because the senior officers were working on the inmate. So the rookie kind of wanted to do something, immediately went to tend to the senior officer. And it was a great connection that was established between these two, at least for the years that I was there. And it was great to know that when the senior officer, eventually gained her composure, she went right back up to that rookie officer who she barely knew at the time and just thanked them for being there. And this had nothing to do with position, nothing. This is just, if you were involved in a scene, this would be what you would do as a human to help the other person battle through it. So I think that's something that rookies don't need to have experience in corrections in to go ahead and understand that you could play that role, as long as you have the calmness about you. So yeah, that's a good one, man. And I think that's something that could be recognized. Now, granted, I just hope that the senior officers who may need it recognize it in themselves, because one is showing that I'm vulnerable, but then, showing I'm vulnerable to a rookie, there's a little bit of an added caveat. But you know what? Doesn't matter. If you're vulnerable, find a way to express it where, obviously it's safe to do so. But don't try to protect your vulnerability, because you will explode at the wrong moment. Excuse me. This is an interesting one. Sorry, swallowed wrong. All right. When past experience clouds present judgment. So veterans bring valuable instincts, but sometimes those instincts can become assumptions. When past patterns override present facts, a rookie may see what others don't. So signs it's time to step up. Inmate concerns are dismissed too quickly. Staff react to history and not current behavior. And a situation escalates based on reputation and not the facts. So what are the anchoring actions? So as a rookie, you want to offer a neutral insight. Hey, you want me to double check that logbook, or something seems off today? Avoid confrontation. Ask questions that lead to clarity. And keep documentation objective and current. Now, to the senior officer, your experience is unmatched, but every now and then, a new set of eyes can reveal what routine can hide. A new set of eyes can reveal what routine can hide. And that's the benefit of having the rookie and the seniors working together. I wish we would absorb that more and let them see it clean so you can see it clearer. So let them see it clean so you can see it clearer. Let me read that again, because that makes sense. I may have read it wrong. So your experience for the senior officer now. So we respect that your experience is unmatched, but every now and then a new set of eyes can reveal what routine can hide. Let them see it clean so you can see it clearer. What's your thoughts on that, Joe?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes, your rookie staff, come in with a fresh perspective. Dealing with one time during shift briefing, I can remember, segregation. There's a lot of paperwork that we got to do for segregation. We got to know behavioral issues, mental issues, medical issues, recreation showers, that kind of thing. In our agency, it's an agency policy that, every inmate is afforded at least 20 minutes to eat their food. And, in segregation, it's a little different because you're basically just handing them trays. And, during the time, one of the rookies had made mention of the fact that, hey, I noticed looking at these forms that, we're not giving them we're not allotting 20 minutes, and, asked him to explain. And he showed me one of the seg cards on one of the inmates. and it shows where they documented they handed them the tray, and then 8 minutes later they picked up the tray. So going back for an audit purpose, I started looking back on some of these seg cards, and sure enough, we weren't showing that we're affording these guys 20 minutes to eat. Therefore, that rookie kind of saved our bacon in the fact that had they done an internal audit, that could have been a finding through the compliance division. So sometimes having a fresh perspective and having somebody that comes in new with open eyes and reads the policies, reads the post orders, and brings that newness and that outside perspective to us. It's not necessarily a bad thing, like I said, in this case, they saved us a lot of issues going forward because of the fact that we weren't properly documenting what we should have been.
Yeah, guys, I want to add something what Joe's saying. When you have, I'm going to be more specific towards inmates real quick. When you have inmates that take advantage of the system, that try to manipulate housing or, whatever it is, they try to manipulate our responses. Obviously, it makes sense for officers who are constantly being victimized by this game to erode their level of urgency. Because they know the outcome is going to be just some inmate playing a game and, it's not chest pains. He does it all the time because he wants to be in the infirmary, or he's not really going to kill himself because he just wants to go to the stabilization, whatever. So we know that they employ games to manipulate housing and, doing that every day. The officer who's constantly responding to that, or the team that's constantly responding to that, starts to downplay the urgency. And it's not, to be honest, it's not their fault. That's the fault of the person playing the game. But it is their fault if they're not aware of it, that it's happening. And then that's a different ball game. And sometimes rookies are that fresh set of eyes where, an inmate may say I have heart pains, and the senior officer may say, well, he does that all the time, if you know him. And they're going to say, well, I don't know him. So I'm going to go ahead and treat it as if it's a real heart attack. And yeah, maybe I could be getting manipulated, but I also could have a guy that could die on me. So Grant, I love what Joe is saying, and I agree that the fresh set of eyes matter, because routines that we do could be beneficial, but some of them could be routines that are out of our control. The routines that the inmates manipulate, that somehow we're just unfortunately on the other end of that. There's so many things that inmates can do that trap us because we have to respond, and we could become blinded by the urgency of the need for that response. It could be something real, but no, the inmate's done it so many times, they're playing a game. Yeah, until they're not.
Yeah,
so I think
that's what I was fixing to say. It's the boy who cried wolf until the wolf's actually there.
Yeah,
and one time.
And Joe, you're right, man, because the rookie, it's going to be new to them. It's going to be novel to them. And somehow or another, this is hard. I don't know if a lot of senior officers may agree with this, but to be honest with you, you have to treat every situation with that same level of urgency, even if the person is playing the game, because the moment they're not, they don't care about the other 99 times, and they'll get you for negligence. That's the one thing you don't want to get in corrections is negligence. I mean, we make mistakes. We're human. That to me is not negligence. But what negligence is knowing you could have done something better. And then when you get called to the floor later on because you didn't, trying to utilize excuses like, well, this inmate played that game all the time, and unfortunately it was real this time. Okay, no one cares about the other 99 times. So it's good for the rookie to keep that fresh set of eyes and kind of remind staff to some extent that, hey, maybe we're lost in a routine. Maybe this time could be different. Now, granted, one last thing. Sometimes the rookies could get manipulated. I didn't mean to say that. Sometimes the rookies could get swept up into that routine as well if they see the other senior officers are kind of like, nah, don't bother. This guy does it all the time. So a rookie could be very impressionable. So it takes a lot of courage for the rookie to kind of stand behind what they're trying to do. And say, hey, listen, I'm still going to treat it with this level of urgency. I know you're saying he's playing a game, and maybe he is, but the point is, it's something that he told me, and I'm going to go ahead and forward it up the chain of command to make sure at this point we're all covered. Yeah. It's not a CYA move. You notice I didn't say cover my own ass. I said we're all covered, because there'll be the one moment where it's not. There's a story with Sanford and Son. What's the guy's name? Red Fox. He used to do the heart attack. And everybody thought, it was his acting. And then finally he died of that type of heart attack, and people thought he was acting.
Yeah.
So, just interesting. All right. So the next one I got, Joe, is when you know the updated procedure. Now, new hires are often trained on the most current policies, while veterans have years of wisdom. They might not have seen the latest updates. So signs it's time to step up. The team defaults to outdated forms, processes, or language. There's hesitation around recent policy changes, or you're the only one referencing the most up-to-date materials, anchoring actions. Um, Offer help, not correction. I think the new version handles that. That would be what you would say, maybe. I think the new version handles that differently. Want me to pull it up? Walk the team through changes if asked. Be a quiet reference point and stay humble. This is about shared accountability. And to the senior officer, policy is the shield that protects all of us. If the rookie knows it's better today, let them carry that piece of the shield. I want to mention something real quick, just in this part. If you feel that something's breaking away from something you're being taught, now mind you, facilities have different ways of applying policies and procedure. It's not all going to be universal the way you see it in the academy. So you want to be careful before putting a judgment on a system without knowing why that system's there. So you do approach it with a sense of curiosity, not judgment. Hey, I noticed you're doing it this way. In the academy, we were taught this way. Is there a reason for the difference? So, because right off the bat, if you try to get involved in this too quick, staff will become resistant because you're changing something or you're trying to change something in their mind that they're more comfortable with. What's your thoughts, Joe?
Yeah, I mean, when we send these rookies through the academy, a lot of the times the training departments that handle, these academies are usually the first ones to get any kind of applied updates, regarding policies and procedures. And you're absolutely correct. When it comes to the facilities, the policies and procedures are correct. They just have different ways of applying them. But, however, there have been times where, as well as I do, where emails didn't get sent and people weren't made aware of any kind of updates, or, they passed it down through the chain of command. And for some reason, it stopped somewhere in the chain of command and the rest of us weren't made aware. And I've had times, doing training sessions during shift briefing where, rookies have said, hey, they told us in the academy, this is, it's supposed to be this way. So, going back and looking at the new policies and looking, at the policies procedures, you find out they're correct. It was just a communication thing where the information wasn't disseminated down the way it was supposed to have come down. And, a lot of the times your rookies come in with the fresh information before us old hands even are made aware that the policies changed. So, it's always good that, when them rookies kind of speak up about that kind of stuff and let us know what they're being taught in the academy. This way we can always go back and pull the policy and procedure offline, online, in a book, in a binder, depending on how y'all's, agencies do it. And then find out. And then, I've had to go back to a shift briefing the next day and say, you know what, he was absolutely correct. This policy changed. I wasn't made aware of it. I'm sorry, but this is what the policy says. And they're absolutely correct.
Now, Joe, you're right. I want to add something to the agency on this one, because, by the way, you got to realize it's going to take a lot of courage for a rookie to even question a policy, even if it's because they want to learn. It does take a lot of courage for them to do that. But I do believe that the agency should make sure that what they're being taught in the academy is also being taught to the people that are working the job. So, it's expected. This is something where the gap should not be handled between the rookie and the senior officer in that moment. This should be something that's already addressed. So when the rookie goes in, if they don't see something that they're used to, at least the senior officer can know, oh yeah, we heard about that, but this may be why we go a different route here at this facility. And so it's not a culture shock for both sides, because that's the problem. I think too, is something like that when it's not communicated. I mean, I love to say that, the rookie, should be asking questions based out of curiosity, trying to keep that rapport with the senior staff. But if you really want to solve this problem at a higher level, you got to make sure that's what's being taught in the academy is translating, or what's being taught to the new boots is translating to the facilities. Because I've seen that, guys. You see rookies come in and say, hey, we're not being taught that way. And now they're conditioned to do one thing, and then the senior officer is showing them maybe something that's more convenient or just not the way, and you're losing. And there's just so much being lost in regards to what we're trying to make for that rookie. And now we have a practice over policy possibly being taught.
Yeah.
This is the practice, and I know policy says this, but this is how we do it here. And now the rookie, for the first time, is caught in a bit of a concern of, wow, I just discovered there's a difference between practice and policy. And now I don't know what supersedes. I mean, do I want to do the practice here, or should I stay and push on the policy? But that's really not for the rookie. That's for the academy or whatever, the training, to make sure that communication happens in facilities and the rookie doesn't get caught in that conundrum. Okay, so next one. Does that make sense? Did that make sense, Joe?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So when I have the next one I have is when complacency becomes a risk. So over time, habits replace vigilance. When shortcuts become the norm, a rookie's discipline can subtly and powerfully anchor the team. So signs it's time to step up. Staff cut corners on counts, searches, or logs. The vibe shifts towards close enough, and warnings are met with jokes or dismissive remarks. So the anchoring actions. As a rookie, you want to model consistent, policy-driven behavior quietly and firmly. Ask purposeful questions. We're logging this one too, correct? And keep your tone respectful, but your standards high. Now, to the senior officer, you help build this culture. Let the rookie help protect it. So you help build this culture. That's to the senior officer. Let the rookie help protect it. If their sharpness sharpens yours again, that's leadership, not loss. I'm sure you've seen that joke. Russ preaches against complacency.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Complacency is one of the biggest factors in our profession, and the one thing you don't want to do is diminish a rookie's, intentions and integrity, firmness, fairness, and their consistency. I've seen too many times, even as a lieutenant, I've seen, where sergeants were doing things too fast, too loose-handed. And when one of the rookies kind of, I don't want to say spoke up, but, just kind of mentioned, hey, they told us we're supposed to be doing this, this, and this. And I've seen a sergeant get mad, and, I pulled the sergeant in the office. What the fuck you getting mad for? They're correct. It's exactly what we're supposed to be doing. So we're not going to hamper this rookie for doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing. That's exactly what we want them to do. So, there's going to be a lot of times where even your senior staff get complacent, cutting corners, whether it be counts, security checks, just anything in general. Because, the influence of complacency, when you promote that downward, complacency becomes practice, and that's what we're trying to avoid.
Yeah, and the biggest concern is when practice trains practice, and then now policy's out the window. They say rookies are like a mirror, and when they come on to the job and they begin their career, they kind of reflection of what the senior officers should believe in, or in some cases used to believe in. And basically it's a reminder, like I like what it says here about the sharpness. It's true. It's now when a rookie comes in, management should be thinking, hey, this is a great way to kind of reintroduce the values, the basics, and then you got to make sure that everybody there is connected in what's essential to keep that facility running. So I like when rookies come in because they're going to push policy, and maybe the resistance will come from people pushing practice. But if you have good, receptive senior staff, they may look at what that rookie's trying to push, and then, maybe look back into themselves and say, yeah, maybe I am doing it wrong. And that takes a lot for a senior officer to do that. But I think they should be open to that. And I think that for the rookies that do that, you got to have management provides an environment that allows for that interaction to exist, because it's great when you do have that wake-up call. When rookies and senior staff are working together, that is a benefit, where you're going to have fresh eyes that may kind of wake up the senior officers, the ones that got burned out by the routine. And I think it's just a great working relationship. So I think that's something that we should foster a bit more. And again, and then the rookies learn, obviously, the experience from the senior officers. But I like that expression about the mirror. The rookies showcasing the mirror of the things that we used to value here. They may not know that they're even doing that intentionally, but a good senior officer may walk by that mirror and take a second glance and like, what has happened to me? Because this rookie was me, and then some officers unfortunately become resentful because maybe they look at that rookie and maybe they're upset at themselves because they no longer carry that type of energy. Yeah. And that could also become a bit dysfunctional, because then they'll wind up in an effort to, I guess, balance the relationship. They'll bring the rookie down, because if not, if they allow the rookie to stay at that level, then they have to question themselves. Yeah. And most aren't willing to do that. During a crisis, so when others freeze. So during a crisis, when others freeze. So emergencies don't care about seniority. In a true crisis, action is everything. If you're the only one ready to move, you must move. Signs, it's time to step up. Staff hesitate. They look around or freeze. A senior is injured, unresponsive, or overwhelmed. Radios go silent when every second counts. Anchoring actions. Call the code clearly and without panic. Secure gates. Relocate inmates. Initiate containment protocols. I just want to mention something like that. Someone always said, hey, Ganj, when the situation becomes a bit confusing, for, let's say, a rookie or someone new, what are some of the main objectives? Now, I don't know if this could be universally applied, because every dynamic could be different in corrections, obviously, but I always look for something general like control. So if by chance there's a lot of stuff going on and you're a bit confused, sometimes controlling the environment, locking those inmates, and could be an initial and very needed response. But again, it all depends on the situation. And stay task focused. Others will find their footing by watching you. And to the senior officers, if a rookie goes to the call first, they're not trying to outshine you. They're trying to save you. Let the moment belong to whoever is ready. Let the moment belong to whoever is ready. And that hopefully eliminates the competition. Hey, this corrections is a young person's game to some extent. So if there's a rookie that can get to a code faster than me, I'm not going to try to race with the rookie and then get to the code and not have the energy to do anything. You know what I mean? What's your thoughts on that, Joe?
That's kind of where my fat ass is right now. Is if you can outrun me to get there, by God, let a rip, Skip. Because you're absolutely right. It does no good to try to keep up with somebody 30 years younger than you, and you ain't got the breath. Hell, you got to call a medical code just for somebody to bring an oxygen tank for you. And you're absolutely right. I've seen rookies who, have darted straight to a call right off the bat, no hesitation, no nothing, and get there and call what they see on the radio. And I've seen rookies, and I've seen veteran staff kind of freeze up, trying to gain consensus of what the situation is and what do I need to do to get this under control. And and sometimes it doesn't take much. It just takes that one person to be on the radio, calling it, as they're seeing it, whether they need more assets, whether they need equipment, if they need chemical agents, or if it's just as simple as, somebody calls a code and maybe half the other side of the unit doesn't hear it, but they still continue radio traffic and they're stepping on people. And then that one person says, hey, the channel's closed except for emergencies only. So-and-so has control of the radio airwaves at this time. And I've seen them step up and do that, but, absolutely, you don't want to diminish their excitement on responding to their first codes or, responding to their first fight. And I learned as I get older that, I'm not 22 no more. I don't have the wind that I used to have, nor do I have the speed and the grace anymore. So, don't try to compete, give them their moment, let them shine.
So, it's funny. I remember a few years ago when Tier Talk was like on iHeart. It was more of an audio podcast. And I can't remember specifically the incident. I just know that there was a senior officer that had a history of responding, no concerns. And we were doing an episode on PTSD. I remember that part. And basically he said there was an incident that happened in front of him and he froze. And it's not because he froze because he was afraid to act. He just couldn't resonate. Like it didn't resonate. It just didn't set in as what he saw. It was just so, I remember it being so shocking. So he froze. And then obviously support came around, but he had enough of a history where they didn't question him. Like this person was someone that responded, was active, and then just at one moment, I guess maybe it caught up. I don't know, but he was supported, even though he didn't respond at that moment. And his excuse was, he goes, what I saw didn't quite resonate with me. But thank God he had this, the rookies or the younger officers who were kind of just, they kept it moving. And there was no judgment there, and both ways. There was no judgment by the rookies thinking that the senior officer was weak, but there was also no judgment by the senior officers thinking that the rookies thought they were better than him. You're going to respond because you think I can't. No, who said that? That's probably in your head. And now that also becomes a concern. Sometimes what we think, the intent or the motive, you could have someone just responding to help out, but now you're judging them because of your own insecurities.
Yeah.
So, and as I said, I mean, obviously this should be common sense for a rookie officer. If there's a moment and something's frozen in time, you got to put your hands on something, because our objective may not be at the very beginning try to solve the matter, but our objective should be to try to slow it down. Whatever's happening, how do we slow it down? How do we push decisions into it? And sometimes that means you may have to safely put your hands on something. Okay, so the next one. So this is what we kind of touched on before, Joe, but when calm is needed and emotion is winning. So frustration, fatigue, or personal history can push even the best officers into escalation. In that moment, calm isn't a luxury; it's leadership. Signs it's time to step up for the rookie. Staff shout, pace, or take confrontations personally. Inmates react not to the policy, but the emotion. And the environment is primed for unnecessary force or conflict. Anchor in action. So for the rookie, even offer a redirect. Hey, want me to walk him out, or let me take this one? Keep your own voice low and steady, and bring attention back to procedure, not emotion. Bring attention back to procedure, not emotion. Now, to the senior officer, your fire has carried many teams, but sometimes you need someone to manage the heat. Let the rookie steady the flame. They're not judging. They're covering you. That kind of relates to the first one we talked about emotions. But what's your thought? Because you said calm is contagious. So now this is the other side of it. This is when you could have an officer that's overly emotional at the very beginning, and you kind of step in to make sure the officer doesn't do something foolish. But in this case here, this is about you being the calmness and hoping that the energy is received by the people around you.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Calmness rubs off just as quickly as panic or emotion. You always want to make sure that you have that one person there who, when things seem to be escalating instead of de-escalating, can be that that voice of reason, whether is to bring calmness or find some way to bring containment to the issue, to, like you said, to slow it down. And it's, if you have somebody, and even if it's a rookie who has that capability, that's a good thing to have, because there are times where emotions will get the best of you, whether it be shock, panic, anger, whatever the emotion is that has that chance of actually escalating the situation, which could be a bad thing for your team. It could get somebody hurt, if you don't act with reason and calmness. So having that rookie, or anybody, and it doesn't have to be a rookie. Sometimes I've seen where the rookies have calmed vet staff down, and I've seen the other side of it. Especially when it's a rookie's first time to respond to a code, whether it's a suicide or a fight with a weapon, or something that just where they show up to their first scene and they go, oh shit. That's when that hand, from a good leader, whether it be an officer or a supervisor, the hand on the shoulder. Hey, first thing we need to do is get these guys seen by medical, get this contained, get everybody locked down. And we'll deal with the rest of this, as it comes.
Yeah, I've seen this where, I've had this happen in front of me, where the first thing I recognized as a rookie was I felt uncomfortable by the situation. You could have an officer just going all out on an inmate, and maybe the inmate is pushing the buttons, but the officer is definitely the one that has lost control, and that's kind of, why the inmate's trying to push the buttons. So there's a finesse here too, because sometimes in the rookie's effort to try to get involved and resolve, the officer who's going back and forth with the inmate is trying to get their control back. They're trying to win. And when the rookie goes to maybe help out, the senior officer snaps at the rookie. Now that your emotions are too they're all over the place. So I think for something like this, you also have to let the senior officers know, be wary of what you're putting out in the world. Be wary of the energy that you're giving, because if you got a rookie now that's trying to calm the situation, then you better step back and check, yourself, because you're adding to the flame. And I definitely seen that, because now the funny thing is that if that becomes a routine for that senior officer, rookies will no longer get involved, especially if you snap at them once. I'm going to try, because it takes a lot of courage for that rookie to get in between and correct the senior. The amount of courage that would take for a rookie is it's unimaginable. But if you go to attack that rookie, because with that courage comes a lot of vulnerability, because they are taking the risk. And when you go to attack them, they'll never help you again.
Nope, you'll shut them down immediately.
Shut them down. So you really, for the senior officers, you got to see that as help. Don't look to win an argument. It's not about pride here. It's about literally let's try to de-escalate. And maybe sometimes you have to ask yourself, maybe I'm the problem here, because I'm allowing the inmate to get to me. And guys, if you're saying that doesn't happen, we all know that's not true. It happens. So you need someone to be that center of control, that anchor, as this title is. And sometimes it may come from the rookie who is experiencing these things for the first time, and it would be great if we can model behavior. Even if we lose emotion, we can model the recovery. And I think that'd be great for rookie officers to see that. So if you come in and say, hey, if I'm the rookie, hey, Joe, hey, let me talk to you for a minute, whatever it is. And that would be good for them to know that's received, because last thing you want is, if it's not received, then people stop trying, and then who knows where it's going to escalate to. But it does take courage to do that for a rookie. Same thing here with this one, when ethics are being tested. So boundary violations, excessive familiarity, or unethical requests must be addressed. For a rookie, that takes courage. For a senior officer, it takes humility to accept correction. Signs it's time to step up, flirtation, secrecy, or special treatment emerges. You witness breaches that others ignore, or the rookie is pressured to look away. Anchor in action, so document behaviors without bias or drama. Use chain of command, even anonymously if needed, and stand firm. The uniform's integrity is on the line. By the way, when it says chain of command anonymously, when there's no trust in the facility, if you're getting anonymous notes, I get it, can give you information, but you should go back and question the trust in that front end of integrity. Because if I only feel comfortable doing the right thing, if my name is not put into it, then there's no trust or support in that. And shame on the officer, or shame on, because your job is to hold people accountable. Your job is not about being accepted. Your job is doing what is right. So we need that stamp. If someone's doing something wrong, we need that stamp. So 1, stamp your name on it. 2, provide an environment where people don't have a concern that their name is stamped on something that promotes integrity. And to the senior officers, we all make mistakes, but pride should never stop a course correction. If a rookie steps up, don't fight it, join it. This is a unique one, Joe, because we all can get lost in emotion. I get it. This one may be a bit harder because this is a correction. Yeah. So now you got a rookie that's going to step in and correct me. And I don't know if sometimes I could say it could be softened. Sometimes rookies could see something that may look a little bit unique, and they could ask out of curiosity, and, then listen to what the justification could be. But if there's still a pattern where it's like, nah, this is not what that officer said, this is flirting, or they're definitely too close, to step up and do the right thing needs to be supported, because that's the only thing that will motivate a rookie at that point. Knowing that because imagine this, they do what's right and nothing happens. That to me, I think for me, if you want the rookie to do what's right, you got to promote an environment that supports it, so that people that are doing wrong don't feel like they're the majority. I want the people that are doing what's right to feel that they're the majority, but sometimes in most facilities, it's not always the case. The people that feel that they're doing what's right feel that they're the minority.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on that, Joe?
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. There are a lot of the times that these guys they're trying to do the right thing, or they absolutely feel like they're in the minority. And And I even hate to cross this boundary, but when things are reported with their names on it, sometimes retaliation is real. Been through it myself, so I can kind of understand some of the anonymous things. But if you're getting a slew of anonymous tips about other staff, as an administrator, as a facility administrator, it's time to start looking into the supervision of your staff. It's time to start looking at these frontline supervisors to see what's going on. Every facility's been through it, the cliques, the favoritisms, the undercover dating scenarios, which, always never lead to anything good as far as outcomes when it breaks bad. And it's hard to be ethical, and remain ethical, especially when it comes to, reporting other staff. Nobody wants the label of being a snitch. Nobody wants this, but again, when these people are far and few between and they feel like they're the minority, there's a bigger issue at hand other than them bringing this information to you. And, that's where they need to start observing this frontline supervision to see what's going on their shifts.
So, yeah. And I want to mention something with this. So, there's an understanding sometimes that comes with recognizing something that may not be ethically correct. Usually it's developed in patterns because you got to have context, unless it's outright surface. I mean, that's different. I see an inmate come up and kiss Joe right on the cheek. I already know that's wrong, and that's easy for me to react to. What's usually harder to react to is the subtleness, the things you feel before you're able to justify or rationalize it. So that's why, one, you got to develop some level of context too. So it's always good before you jump into making judgment is maybe asking someone you trust, telling them what you see. If you want to leave the person's name out of it for a while, that's fine. Because the last thing you want is for an effort to get understanding, make it look like you're spreading a rumor. But I would also first go to the person who you may be questioning, and out of curiosity, try to get an understanding of what's happening, and then figure out where you have to go from there. Because again, sometimes the effort to seek guidance becomes gossip. And I'll always ask people, hey, did you go to that individual first? No. Well, you should have. You should have, because a couple of things will happen there. Whether you're wrong or right, it doesn't matter. The person should appreciate your effort, which is easier said than done. I get it. But here's the cool thing too. If they know, they stop doing it in front of you. If that makes sense. So sometimes that question will stop them from doing whatever is there in front of them. Sometimes people do stuff in front of you because they think they can. That's why they're like, well, when officers go corrupt, how do these professionals not know it? Because they're not doing it in front of them, because they are professionals, And then when you get the officers like, man, I can't believe that Joe did this and did this all in front of me. Well, that's because you're allowing it, because you didn't address it. So the people that see it all the time, sometimes I tell them, you might as well just say you participated in it, because the moment you go to correct it, sometimes the people that are doing stuff foolish start to slow down what they're doing in front of you. And that's another benefit of asking them that question. So it may not even about whatever answer you give me. Maybe I know the answer is going to be BS. I don't know. But the point is, I saw something, I bring it to you. And now if you're doing something wrong, you're going to have to start thinking twice. Because you're like, oh, well, this person's asking questions. And next thing you know, the behaviors at least don't happen in front of you. And sometimes, I'm not saying that's the ultimate goal, but sometimes that may be my first goal. My first goal is, you know what? I don't know, but I just don't want this person doing this in front of me. So I've seen officers that may be a bit confused of what they're seeing in front of them, and tell the officer that's, maybe going a wrong path to go say, hey, I don't know what's going on here, but do me a favor. If you want to do that, whatever, but you're not doing that in front of me. Right off the bat. And then they'll go try to figure it out in the long run of what's being done. But they set that line right down, at least with them at first. Don't do that in front of me next time. Next time, you want to do whatever, but not in front of me. You've seen that, right, Joe? All right.
Yeah. I've seen it, I've seen where rookies have, not even rookies, but other staff members have just, seen it long enough and just finally get a gut full of it and finally bring it to the surface and tell them, hey, if y'all want to do that shit, don't do it in front of me. I don't want it near me. Don't want it around me.
And that's a good first step if needed. Now we have, this is what Joe touched on briefly before, but when your life experience gives you an edge, so a rookie's personal history may equip them better for specific moments. Veterans should recognize this as a resource, not as a threat. Signs it's time to step up. A crisis requires empathy, trauma, knowledge, or emotional intelligence. You feel calm while others fumble, and you've been here before in a different context. Anchor and actions as a rookie, offer to lead conversations or manage delicate moments. Use quiet confidence, not bravado, to gain trust, and let your prior life prepare you for this one. So for the senior officers, that rookie may be new to the badge, but not new to the burden. Let them lean into their strength. It only makes the team stronger. Joe, you touched on that before with the medic.
Yeah. And, I've had quite a few correctional officers that had, EMT backgrounds or, Army backgrounds as a medic, chaplains, all that sort. And, sometimes them having that edge is a good thing. We just got to make sure that we let them understand that, their first priority there is to be a correctional officer. I've had, a couple of people, especially with the EMT backgrounds, try to do things a little further and beyond first aid that maybe our medical department should be doing. And, like I said, I get with them and tell them, hey, you did an awesome job containing that bleed. Let's just make sure, we're just doing what we can do up to first aid until our medical can take over. And I've also had people with chaplaincy backgrounds that are ordained that come in as correctional officers. And, for those style people coming into a correctional field and hearing the things that are usually said by the inmate population could be a shock factor. And then you find some of these, try to pull them to the side and preach to them a little bit, which, if you're doing something to correct their immediate behavior is one thing. But, again, there was times where I had to remind them, you get to make sure that you're a correctional officer first. Your past experiences give you the experience to handle certain situations here, but we need to make sure that we remain a correctional officer first and not try to dip into our past experience and try to overtake, what's already in place.
That's powerful because, it's funny. I think in corrections, you want people that could pick up the ball, but then you also want people to be able to know when to pass it off.
Yeah, and that's the thing. You don't want to diminish their capabilities, and you want them to take that initiative to take a situation. But at the same time, there's times where you got to kind of reel them back a little bit and kind of remind them what their primary job function is, and help them kind of separate the two from time to time.
Yeah, and I have that in a few of my books because you also have some people that will say it's not my title, even if I know it. But sometimes, in corrections, I get it. It's not within your prescribed role, whatever it is. But I can't think of one person that's working corrections that doesn't go out of their prescribed role once in a while, at least to help out someone until they can get the ball moving on their own. And we do it every day. And if you want to sit there work in this position as a correctional officer, be a first responder, and only hold yourself to your prescribed role, you may find yourself very limited in how effective you could be. And an agency should understand that as well, because I know sometimes they may come after people for going to the left or right, but sometimes it's because the person didn't know when to give that ball back over. Because, like Joe mentioned, there's a time where you got to play the role because you have to, and maybe you have the experience to do it. But, if someone comes in who's actually paid to do that role, then you need to step aside and let that person do it, especially if they're doing it correctly. So again, this could be a case-by-case thing, but I like what Joe said. Your life experience may give you the reason to take the ball, but let's not forget that you have another primary function, and at this point, you have to remember to give the ball over. Make sure you're just giving it to the right people. So again, you embrace initiative, take the ball. You can't just stand there. But the problem is now you don't want to give the ball back. And that's something that happens a lot in our profession. We have people jockeying for position when the positions have already been defined. What are you doing? You were in the position now. You're doing what you got to do. Now the other people coming in, they're the ones that get paid for this job. Give them the ball. Give them the ball. Give them the ball. And then you see it when everyone is looking around for direction. So when leadership stalls, someone must take the first step. Sometimes that person is the one least expected. So for rookies, No one is given orders during confusion. It's the sign, a sign when you got to step up. So again, no one is given orders during confusion. The floor is chaotic and directionless, and a pause becomes paralysis. So what are the anchoring actions? Issue a clear, simple instruction. Inmates, back to the wall. Now, by the way, I don't know if this matters for every situation, but if I was a rookie and I saw a little chaos, obviously I may not be giving orders to the officers, but I may first give out my directive. Inmates, back into your cell. And as I said, try to get your hands and directions somewhere. Take initiative on one piece of the response. That's cool. And restore movement to break the freeze. So to the senior officers, every leader has moments where they blank. If a rookie fills the silence, let them. That's not disrespect. It's devotion to the mission. What's your thoughts, Joe?
Yeah, I mean, in every situation that we cross or that we come to in the profession, there's got to be that one person who's able to take charge of the situation and say, this is what we need to do, A, B, C, and D, or issue clear instruction to how we need to contain this issue, whether it be locking offenders in, getting medical, maybe it could be somebody doing CPR or first aid, but you got to have those people that are willing to take that first step. And sometimes, it's the rookies because sometimes they have it fresh on their mind. When they go through the academy, they're taught to, the caper method, contain, alert, all the way through the, all the way down to the R where it's for restore. And they have that fresh on their mind, and sometimes even the old hands kind of miss a step and lose track of where they're at and what they're supposed to be doing. So to have that one person step up and get the ball rolling and get the plan in action, it's a good thing.
Yeah, and guys, I still love it where it's like, just get your hands on a piece of something if need be, because you got to slow things down. That's the key. Even when we're looking at incidents, we may not be looking for instant resolution, but we're looking for people who committed an action, who try to make an effort to slow things down. All right, so I got two more left, Joe. When your energy inspires the team, a rookie's pride in the uniform can reignite a room full of burned out veterans. Positivity isn't naive, it's contagious. So when it's time to step up, staff see disengaged or cynical, no one's asking questions, caring, or correcting, and you're told, don't try too hard. Anchoring actions would be consistent in your professionalism, show energy even when others don't, and offer encouragement by actions, not lecture. Senior officers, that rookie reminds you of who you were when you started. Let their flame rekindle yours. They're not challenging you. They're reflecting you.
Yep.
I think a lot of us forget. That's why I said the mirror thing. I think a lot of us forget that was once us in that reflection. And sometimes some of us will be motivated to go back to that beautiful reflection, and some of us will have such a lifetime of regret because we allowed ourselves to fall so far from who we once were in that mirror that we feel more comfortable now being who we are because we don't want to fight through the struggle of realizing that we chose that path that took us the wrong way. And I'm sorry, guys, you when it comes to this profession fulfillment, you cannot leave that in the hands to anybody else. The value of your work does not lessen even if you don't feel the appreciation from above, because at the end of the day, the value comes from within. So when you see a reflection of a rookie, the rookie's in there and they put up that mirror and there's a reflection of you inside that rookie, don't try to change the rookie to be who you are now if you're burned out. Try to remind yourself who you were and connect with the rookie at their level at that point, because that was you.
Yeah.
That's what's your thoughts, Joe?
Yeah, absolutely. When you have a lot of burnout and negativity, it's toxic. It spreads. But you shouldn't blame that on the people who are coming in that still have the positivity, the energy. Wants to wear the uniform the way it is, the way it's supposed to look. I was that rookie too. I came in, my uniforms were always pressed, my boots were always shined, and you walk into a room and a quarter of them are. They look like they just pulled their uniform out of the dryer and threw it on, and sometimes it comes with heckling, and we've all been through it, oh, look at this new boot, whose ass he's trying to kiss, and there were times I just simply looked at that person who was in that ratty uniform and asked them, well, what underpass did you sleep under last night? And I just leave it at that, And, at some point they kind of take a look at themselves and look at each other and they're like, yeah, our shit is kind of ragged. So, all it takes is one good comeback, and, your energy eventually is going to rub off. It may not rub off that day. It may not rub off that week or that month, but eventually it's going to rub off. And it tends to make the burnouts kind of look at themselves and second guess themselves as to what they're doing. And remember back when they used to be those eager new boots and went through the academy and everything was tight, right, and shined. And, so, you can definitely inspire the person without, just by appearance. You don't have to say anything. You could just simply be by appearance and action.
Yeah, what's funny is sometimes silence we talked about is never neutral. There's a lot of stuff in that silence, and some people will think that silence means everything is going good, and sometimes it's not. Sometimes silence could just be a reflection of burnout. And when you get rookies that are coming in, they add a little noise to the room.
Yep.
And people don't want that noise. It's like, but you need the noise.
Yep.
You may need a little bit of that noise. So allow that noise to exist and try to do what you can to cultivate that noise. Okay, the last one, Joe. It's a good one to end on. When the culture needs a reset, sometimes the environment becomes toxic and the new voice in the room becomes a necessary one. Courage isn't always loud. Sometimes it's refusal. Signs it's time to step up. So for the rookie, gossip, sarcasm, and disrespect dominate the team dynamic. You're pressured to join in or stay quiet, and you see newer staff absorbing these behaviors. The anchoring action for you would be, choose silence over slander, standards over shortcuts. Be the example for the next rookie watching you. And that's good, actually. Be the example for the next rookie watching, because maybe it's easier to be an example for them, because at that point you'll have more time. And stay firm in your principles without isolating yourself. Now, to the senior staff, you helped set the tone when you started. Let the rookie help set it now. Culture isn't about tradition. It's about truth. Joe, what's your thoughts?
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. And I've seen where rookies have come in and, after a certain period of time, a couple of weeks after, working with some of the officers, they'll come to you and or go to their, go to other peers and say, hey, what do you think about so-and-so? And, the first words out of my mouth were, I don't know, go work with them and form your own opinion. You shouldn't have to rely on somebody else's opinion to form yours about a person. That's something you should be doing yourself. Mm-hmm. And, there are times where, you just absolutely have to push the reset button on an entire shift and let them know that, things that have been happening aren't going to happen anymore. Force the issue. I used to, do classes and, you see these people group up. I'd make them switch seats. I'd jockey them around. Because I don't want these people getting into a habit where, you have one culture sitting over here, another culture sitting over here, and then you got your lone wolf sitting out front. That's not what it's supposed to be about. Everybody should feel comfortable sitting next to each other, regardless of where the seats are. So, there's times where you just got to absolutely push the reset button just to get a culture reset, to get rid of some of that toxicity.
Yeah. And what's funny about this? So culture, that's a lot to put on a rookie, obviously, because a rookie's already walking into what's already exists. So now, no one's saying that they're going to come in and be able to change the culture overnight, and no one's expecting them to. But I know for me, it's not always about changing everyone, but maybe the right person that has influence. So it's not about quantity, but quality. And if you keep being that voice, you will find the right person. My final thoughts on this show is... leadership in corrections isn't about who's newest or most seasoned. It's about who shows up in the moment. Rookies don't hesitate when the moment is yours. Veterans don't reject the lifeline when it comes from a new hand. Because in the toughest moments, rank fades. What remains is presence, professionalism, and the willingness to anchor each other. Correctional strength is a shared strength. Joe, what's your closing thoughts?
Yeah, it shouldn't be. Yeah, it's about one team. It's, one team, one love. Everybody should be on the same page. It should be about one culture. There shouldn't be any kind of division or wedge anywhere in there. For this profession, it could be very toxic to all of us. And that's something that we need to promote more often. A lot of the times that, we don't have time to promote what we need to promote, but we need to take the time out to actually, start promoting that. The culture that we promote is the culture that we bless.
That's so true. And guys, again, this topic it's a good topic. I mean, even if a lot of the stuff is common sense, it's still bringing it to awareness, or at least recognizing it. So hopefully you guys got a good, knowledge from this episode. And as always, guys, the show is Tier Talk. If you haven't, please subscribe, interact, engage, comment, hit that bell. Bell's going to notify you every time I post my video. Stay safe.